Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise yet again to speak against Senate Bill 98. And yes, I rise bearing a coat hanger, which has been a symbol of what women who were denied medical services were relegated to do in the dim past, and many women died with a rusty coat hanger as they sought to end an accidental, unwanted pregnancy. That is why we bring this symbol to you today on the floor. The author says it's not an abortion bill before he hastily took his seat. It's not an abortion bill. Refused to take any questions. Then other colleagues, other Republicans in the chamber have said the same thing from your seat or came down and took the well and said, this isn't an abortion bill. I don't know why y'all are talking about an abortion bill. Why are y'all talking about war against women? That's all wrong. You don't even understand what this bill does. Well, yet again, let me say, women do understand what this bill does. And men do too. I appreciate so much the comments that my colleagues have brought from their seats and in the well in opposition to this bill. Colleagues, the very title of this bill, look at it on your blue sheet. Y'all still got your calendar for today? We got a lot of bills on there. They did your bills a disservice, didn't they, to put Senate Bill 98 up here at the top of the list?
Senator,
but if you read your blue Senate Bill 98.
Senator, suspend for just a moment. The rule is one senator in the well, so y'all, the other four senators can go ahead and depart. She can stay.
I am in the well.
Yeah.
I am in the well. And Senate Bill 98, we were told this is not about abortion. We were told we've totally misunderstood this bill. Doesn't have anything to do with abortion. What are you talking about abortion for? What are you talking about a war against women for? If you pull out your blue sheet, your calendar for the day, Senate Bill 98 is entitled Federal Abortion Mandate Opt-out Act. So either the author misnamed his bill or it is in fact about abortion. It is in fact about abortion. So let's lay that talking point to rest, that we're not here debating access to abortion. We're here opposing a bill that would make it onerous for the average family or the average woman of average income to have the option of seeking abortion services without any insurance coverage, because that's what this bill is an effort to do. It's to not allow insurance policies in Georgia to cover abortion services. A legal service, a service that is a medical service. Doctors are performed to provide that service. We are protected in our rights by the Supreme Court since the 70s, established that we have a right to privacy in those decisions and we have a right to choice. But that's what this bill is about. It's about limiting access to abortion services. It's fine to not see eye to eye. There are those in this chamber that have different views on the question of abortion. What is so objectionable is that you think you have the right to dictate other people's ideas and other people's access to that medical service. That's what's so objectionable. And folks, it comes down to the real world. When the rubber meets the road, these are real lives that you're talking about. These are painful decisions. And this bill is egregious in that it doesn't just mimic the federal language. That's another thing that we were told. I mean, the bill is flying under false pretenses if you listen to some of the claims that have been made about it. It is part of the GOP war against women. It is an abortion coverage ban bill. That's the title of it. And it is a radical bill that, in fact, if a 10-year-old child was raped by a family member or a stranger, and that young girl was impregnated, that family, her protectors, would not be able to seek an abortion service in the event of a pregnancy that occurred from that rapist without having to pay full dollar out of pocket and be forbidden to be reimbursed by any insurance coverage. Because that's another thing that this bill does. The language in it Vote for it if you intend to, and I'm sure you do. Your caucus let it out and put it on the floor today. So I would almost bet it's one of those lockdown bills. I don't know. I'm not in your caucus. But you know that in your heart. Vote as you choose, but I will say this. You're voting for a bill whose very language is so ambiguous that the scope of the legislation could apply to all health plans, because the language says, it says all health plans, quote, offered within the state of Georgia through a state law, a federal law, or regulation or exchange created by the Federal Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. That ambiguous language, which says state law or federal law or regulation or exchange, we all know what happens when you put the ors in there. It means this or this or this. It does not just mean the Affordable Care Act. It does not just mean the state exchange. So when you vote for this bill, you're telling the entire insurance industry that's covered under Georgia law that they are not allowed, as a health plan in the state, to provide coverage for abortion services. So read it closely, look at it, and I see some lawyers scanning their bills now, and you should. You're voting to tell the insurance industry of Georgia that's not covered by ERISA, all that comes within our purview in state government, you're telling them they're not allowed to have abortion services in their insurance policies that they sell in Georgia. And I spoke with one of the supporters of this bill. I said, how in the world can you call that tax dollars when a insurance plan offered on the open market that I purchased with my dollars is not allowed to include abortion services? Well, tax dollars are all through the free market, you know, so it's tax dollars. Its tax dollars are in there somewhere. No. The bill is duplicitous, and I'd say it's duplicitous from start to finish, and it's a radical bill, and it's a mistaken notion that this is what the voters of Georgia want. It's a wedge issue bill, and as I pointed out the last time I was in the well on this topic, it's cost U.S. Senate seats. I remember in the last presidential primary, we heard members of this radical view on abortion who espoused it. We heard them saying that they really didn't cotton to birth control either. Contraception was not a good idea because women didn't make good decisions about that. You know that 50% of all pregnancies are unintended? 50% of all pregnancies are unintended. I want you to look with me at some numbers. But never forget, if you vote for this bill, you are voting to pass a bill that does not allow a victim of rape or incest to have coverage to terminate a pregnancy that comes as a result of that. Don't forget that. Don't sugarcoat that. Don't prettify that, because within your own party, there is a sizable opinion that rape and incest and fetal anomalies should be exceptions. They are not in this bill. The author is not on the floor now. Hopefully he's listening from the anteroom. Sexual assault, I'm sorry to say, is almost commonplace in our society. And you have, we've shared with you some numbers from the Centers for Disease Control that reflect studies that show that 1 in 5 American women report experiencing themselves as a victim of rape at some time in their lives. 1 in 5. Here in the state of Georgia, I've been told by the doctors who watch these numbers that typically every year between 100 and 200 abortions that are provided are for girls under the age of 15. All too often, that's a result of incest or forcible, unwanted sexual advances. You know, almost 20% of college-age women across the country report in surveys that they have been sexually assaulted. Already at this tender age, sometime in their lives, they've already been a victim of a sexual assault or an attempted sexual assault. I was in grade school the first time some man tried to assault me, and it was our elementary school principal. Hello? We seem to be bearing truths up here in the well this year when we talk about these bills. I had enough gumption to elude any that going any further, but I was sent down to that principal's office by a teacher who regularly sent little girls down there. And my mother had to go, and my father had to go get the school superintendent of our school system involved in this and get that principal shuffled off to Buffalo, because I met the other little girls that he had attempted these same efforts, sexually assaulting little girls. I was in the 5th grade, y'all. And just with a little bit of talk, I found other classmates, other little girls like me that had been approached in a completely unacceptable way by this principal in the privacy of his office. So I formed the little club, the I Hate Mr. Chew Club. You know, I thought we ought to organize and do something about it. But I say that to say you can scarcely find a woman that hasn't sometime in her life had to fend off or become victimized by a sexual assault. And so this bill, the way it's drawn, would not allow a victim of rape or incest to have their policy in Georgia cover a termination of an unwanted pregnancy that came as a result of rape or incest. So the numbers are compelling. We're not talking about a handful, we're not talking about a few, but if it's your loved one, your child, your niece, your granddaughter, as an earlier speaker in the well said, you will move heaven and earth to have that unintended pregnancy as a result of a rape dealt with appropriately and not have your underage child or a full-grown woman have to carry to term the result of a forced sexual assault, a rape. Back in more than 10 years ago, they were reporting that rapes produce 32,000 pregnancies annually. I want to call your attention to the position that's been taken by the Georgia Obstetrical and Gynecological Society. Us women folk call it OBGYNs. Probably some of you men folk call it that too. But those are the doctors, bless their hearts, that tend to women addressing our most intimate medical needs that are yes, both emotional and physical. A good OBGYN engages with a woman medically and with their emotional needs as well. Our reproductive organs and our reproductive function, our pre-puberty state, our state of puberty, the childbearing years, and the menopausal years, we seek and need the services of these fine and committed doctors. In their wisdom, these are people who deal with women and our reproductive health issues every day that the good Lord sends. They're in their offices, seeing patients and working to deliver healthy infants, working to help you with your birth control, working to understand when you're off cycle, working to help piece together that very, very delicate balance of hormonal activity and also the diseases that can beset the reproductive organs. That's who the OBGYNs are. Very knowledgeable, very committed to the health of women and to the children that they bear. And they say that they're concerned, and I'll quote them. The OBGYNs are concerned that this bill would negatively impact vulnerable women by preventing their access to critical medical services. For Georgia's female state employees, teachers, their daughters, and other women purchasing insurance policies, this would arguably lead to barriers to healing in terrible circumstances. A pregnant, rape, or incest victim should not have the added burden of uncovered physician and hospital bills. You hear me? That's the viewpoint of the OBGYNs. Highly respected, highly respected, highly trained, highly skilled, and deeply engaged with women and our reproductive processes. They go on to say that quality, safe, and appropriate medical care cannot be delivered by reducing women's coverage choices. That's what this bill does. Georgia's female state employees, teachers and their daughters, and other Georgians, together with their families, faith counselors, and physicians, should be making these painful decisions given their individual circumstance, not based on whether we've passed a bill up here that says your insurance policy no longer provides medical procedures to terminate a pregnancy. Because politicians have decided they know better than you and your doctor and your faith counselor and your own family about what to do. Now people say, oh, but Senator, what are you talking about? We're not prohibiting abortion. We're just dealing with insurance. If you don't have a third-party payer, you're in a world of hurt. And it looks like Georgia's going to keep a whole lot of folk in a world of hurt for a long time to come, because Georgia, GOP leadership in its wisdom, is refusing to expand Medicaid coverage. So I guess we are pretty comfortable with people being uninsured or not having access to coverage. And this bill would rule it out as a possibility for so many women, and particularly young teenagers who are under the care of their parents, who might in their best wisdom seek to terminate a pregnancy. The costs are prohibitive. And you know, when it's not covered by insurance, y'all know how you get your insurance bill, and the insurance company has a contract with the provider, and they have negotiated a lower rate than the market rate for a medical procedure, right? Well, in this case, you would not have, in this case, I don't know, somebody in the back is waving and cutting and carrying on. I don't know if I'm supposed to respond to that, but I'll continue on, Mr. President, and concede that I may be misunderstanding his effort if he wants to come to the well or ask me a question. I would finally submit to you that we have plenty of issues to deal with around reproductive issues for women in Georgia. You know, we have the highest maternal mortality rate, and folks on both sides of the aisle know this because we've passed a bill to set up a study process. 50th, we're the lowest in the country on maternal mortality rates. So we have some real work to do, rolling up our sleeves and addressing pregnant moms. And looking at where we are, we should make an effort to study this issue about what the impact would be before you go willy-nilly with this ideological bill being rammed through on the 40th day. That we should study and look what we can do to provide that abortion is safe, is legal, and is very, very rare in this state. But this bill does not do that. Yes, this bill's a war on women. And particularly it strikes out at women who are economically challenged, whose income levels make it a very difficult, if not impossible, decision for them to seek a medical service a medical service when they need it. You know, holding the majority political power is a very serious responsibility. I've been in the majority. In fact, most of the time I've been up here, I've been in the majority. And so I understand that. And the majority party has this role to play that's sometimes uncomfortable, and that is those who want to really do radical agenda, way out there, off the page issues, either because that's their individual politics or that's their read of their district, can pose real challenges for the rest of the members. And the challenge of letting bills like this come to the floor, taking votes on these bills, can put other members in very uncomfortable positions. And it also sends a message, this is who Georgia is. This is what Georgia believes. And this bill represents a minority opinion to enormously huge degree. But people have chosen to barrel on. They say it's an election year. I was told that. It's an election year. We got to let these bills come on out. But if you think this is what Georgians want us to be doing, if you think this is what Georgians need, I would really question how in touch you are with our electorate, because that's not what I hear. That's not what the surveys show, and I'm afraid we will. Some of us in here, not me, because I'm certainly voting against this bill, and I don't buy into the. But those of you that are voting for it may come to regret it. I would just say that I would just say one thing in closing, and that is the fact that this bill has come before us on the 40th day and absolutely strikes at the heart of women's right to choose, and is another step back in the direction of backroom butchers in back alleys, kitchen table abortions, as they used to call it, coat hanger abortions. When women are locked out of making choices and having access, that's the unfortunate scenario that unfolds. It's a time that we do not need to revisit in Georgia, and we have moved as a nation beyond that over the last 40 years. Georgia should not be going backward. And when it comes to the question of where I want my tax dollars spent, the senator from the 10th made an excellent point that our tax dollars that are pooled are spent on a myriad of concerns. And you could have, if you followed this doctrine, you could have people that don't have children saying, I don't want any tax dollars of mine going to education because I don't have children. Don't spend that money on higher education. Stop training people over there in those technical schools. That's somebody else's child. Let them pay and train their own child. I don't want my tax dollars. You open Pandora's box and you go down a road that actually becomes nonsensical and flies in the face of pooling our resources to build a great society. I will ask you to give grave consideration. Look in your hearts. Seek the wisdom and the courage and the strength to vote against this bill. And back away from the GOP war on women. We're not going to go down in flames. The women are going to rise up. We're moving to the fore in every sector of society to join side by side with men in leading and building and creating a community that's good for all families and all children and all ethnicities and all religions. A vote against this bill is a vote of courage that I'd love to see us cast today. And with that, I will yield the well if there are no questions.